Hello, and welcome to another episode of Game Over, where we discuss interesting topics while playing some badass video games. Today we got a special game going, really popular game at that, Grand Theft Auto Online. Now, this has been out for a while, hasn't it, Shay?
Yeah, most definitely.
I feel like they updated the formula quite a few times. As you can see, some gnarly car action going on.
Yeah. I think this game came
And,
out when I was a freshman in high school.
ooh, damn. That must have been a while, right? You don't sound like no freshman no
Yeah.
more, I can tell you that. Yeah, it's been out for a while. I've just never really, I mean, I guess aside from the online version, I've never really been a fan of Grand Theft Auto. I just like personally, I feel like games should be more science fiction. You know what I mean? Like this is just way
Yeah, I
too
see where you're coming
realistic
from.
of a game for me. Except with the online, they actually made it as if you're Batman. You know, all these neat little gadgets and like all this arsenal that you can keep growing.
For real, I quit GTA Online.
Yeah, it wasn't for you.
For me, it was just like it's really hard to make money in the game, and like they kind of, I don't want to say urge you to, but they kind of like point you to like microtransactions and in-game or for
Hmm.
in-game money, stuff like that.
You know what's funny about that is that you're bringing us to the topic of our podcast today, right? Because it feels like the only way to actually make money in this game, like the only real way of making a lot of money, is through crime, right? Like you're going around doing
Yeah.
these heists, killing these people, and doing all this random stuff, and
Hmm.
and it's all illegal. Like in an ideal world, all of this would obviously be illegal, right? In
Yeah.
no way, shape, or form would any of it, with hijacking a plane in the middle of daylight after killing the owners of the plane would be illegal. But you know, this is something that I feel is good about the video game medium, right? You could just
Yeah.
release your inner demons in games like this and not have to like go out and actually, you know, find a prostitute and start beating the shit out of her or find
Yeah.
an old person and just run him over just out of spite. You know, you could do that in the game, but you can't really do that in real life. So that sort of releases your frustration when you do that in the game. You know, it releases your inner
Yeah.
demons, and so that's why I feel like games are a really good medium to just vent everything out, right?
Yeah. It's more like a way to immerse yourself into like maybe not a fantasy world, but like it could be anybody's ideal world, maybe. Maybe not ours, but
I wouldn't say ideal, man. None of this.
yeah,
I mean,
a
unless
world
you're
to
like a
escape to.
sadistic, crazy sort of person, but you know, I tend to stay
Yeah.
away from those people. So the issue here is, you know, despite the fact that we're joking about this, and despite the fact that what you and I would consider to be an ideal world is a world where no crime is happening, right?
Hmm.
Or much less amount of crime than what we're getting nowadays. And so, you know, the unfortunate truth is crime has skyrocketed recently. And,
For
you
sure.
know, obviously, this stems from the fact that, you know, we're going through a phase that I believe the world has never really been through before. I mean, it's been through it, but not as heavily. You know, it hasn't inflicted such a heavy toll before as it has in terms of the economy, right?
Yeah.
Especially in our like new 21st century industrialized world that where everything is relying on materialism. And so these days with the whole corona epidemic, the people that were struggling to find a job before are now struggling even more. The people that
Hmm.
were living, you know, from paycheck to paycheck with low wage positions are now out of a job and they don't know what to do. You know, they got kids relying on them, they got mouths to feed, they got bills to pay. So The issue is a lot of these people are starting to feel like, you know what? The system is rigged. The system doesn't care about us. So why should we
Mhm.
care about the system? So,
Yeah,
people essentially start looking for ways to make money that's not necessarily legal and end up committing a crime in one way or another that may not cause any implications on them per se, but the people who are victimized by those crimes are the ones that are suffering.
yeah, and they're like, it's almost like they're targeting the wrong person. Like you want to get back at these big corporations, this company, from like just from off the stuff that I see, like on Twitter, just or Reddit, like places like that. But you like they don't realize that they're hurting. Like when the riots were happening, for instance, out here,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were hurting like small businesses or business. Just because somebody owns a business doesn't make them a corporation. They still have family and people to feed. They have to fix that stuff out their own pocket type.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, it affects people who have nothing to do with like your vendetta type. Like if that makes sense.
See, that is also something that I've begun to notice that these people that are struggling with the current system, they never try to go after the bigger corporations simply because of the
Yeah, they're
fact
just
that it
making
would be
other people suffer.
suicide. It would be suicide, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
They feel like it's a means to an end, and I'm obviously laying the blame on the system. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm laying the blame on them because they gave up. And that's my issue with crime and the people that commit these crimes. They gave up on finding the right way, on doing the right thing. They gave up on the right morals. They gave up on faith, faith in God, in hope, whatever it is that you believe in. They gave
In
up on the
themselves.
goodness of their own hearts. And that's my issue. That's what I take issue with in terms of, people who commit these acts of crime. And let me just say, so I have an article that I found when I was researching this topic, and within this article, so I'm going to actually put a link to the full article in the description box below if anyone wants to check it out. But within this article, the demographic, they reached out to a rather it's not necessarily a big demographic, but it was a large demographic, and
Yeah.
it was within the state of Pennsylvania and Maryland, and so I'm going to go into the specifics, but this is just sort of a disclaimer to the viewers that are listening. This has nothing to do with the color of your skin. Whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, indigo, red, freaking crimson, all the colors of the rainbow for all I care. This has nothing to do with what color you are. This is
Yeah.
simply the fact that crime is not the answer. This is what I believe. Now, Shay, you could have your own belief. Others could think of it in a different way. And I don't mind debating with those people on how they think. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe that crime is not the answer. Because what you're doing to others will eventually turn around and bite you in the ass. Right? Whether it's the
Yeah.
system catching up with you, whether it's you get caught in the act by said person and he fights back and you end your life for absolutely no reason aside from the fact that you were not satisfied with the hand that was dealt to you.
Hmm.
And there are many other ways where you eventually will not be able to make it if you go down that path. But if you look at the people that started from nothing and actually made it all the way to the top, dug their way through mud with their own blood, sweat, and tears to make it all the way to the top.
Yeah.
What do they got that you don't got? What is your excuse?
Yeah, that's true.
You understand me? So that's the point I'm trying to make. The people who commit these crimes, they decided that, you know what? The system isn't giving me what I want. I'm not getting what I want in the legal way. I feel like I'm owed a lot more than this. I feel like I'm treated less than a person. I feel like that I'm treated worse than an animal. Then this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to make a living. By robbing people that have nothing to do with any of it. By selling drugs to people who might not even know what they're buying from you. They just take it and ruin the rest of their lives. By
Mm-hmm.
doing crazy, sadistic things that eventually get you caught. And then you end up throwing your life away anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Or even worse.
And it's one thing I want to add.
Yeah.
I feel like just because sometimes just because something is against the law, it doesn't always mean that it's a crime. But either way, you have to be conscious of what you're doing or what's going on. Like say, what I have in mind is like smoking weed type shit. Some places it might be illegal. Um,
But
so
see, that's a whole other thing,
yeah,
Shay. I'm talking. So what you're talking about is sort of a misdemeanor, right? It's not really.
yeah. You're
That's
talking
not
about
really
like
a crime.
felonies and
Yeah, that's not really a crime. But it's a good thing that you brought that up because again, and I lay most of the blame on the system.
mm-hmm.
For people who commit these misdemeanors, for example, as you just said with the weed, why is it that these people, when they get caught and go to jail, why is it that the rest of their lives, for the rest of their lives, this is put on their permanent record and they're being dragged down by the same system that's trying to make them not do this same
supposed
error
to.
again?
Mm-hmm. That's supposedly supposed to reinstate you or help you
How
out
does
or
that
some
even
shit.
make sense, Shay? Like
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sense of it all.
I
So
be trying to
okay,
figure it out every day.
they bring you in and they tell you not to do this again. And they try to make you learn your lesson by locking you up. So that as soon as you leave there, that's it. You learn your lesson. Now you're going to find a job. You're going to quit drugs. You're going to try to do the right thing, right? But you leave
Yeah.
and you see the whole world looking down on you for committing a single, simple misdemeanor. The whole world looking down on you to the point where you can't find a decent job. Nobody trusts you. Everybody that, does a background search on you thinks you're a pothead.
Yeah, they're gonna see
But
you
that's not
different.
really the case. You committed a misdemeanor because you're human. And everybody does it. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the biggest CEOs of the biggest companies, even the president of the United States. Everybody.
Yep.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody deserves a second chance. But the way the system has it all wrapped up, it doesn't work out for you. It doesn't work out for anybody.
You might get that
It's
second chance, but
counterproductive.
you'll still be judged.
Exactly, and that's the point. It's a lot harder for you when you're being judged for something that you did, as out of stupidity, out of like a moment's lapse. It's hard to make your way forward if the system doesn't at least cover for you the first few mistakes that you had.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's counterproductive, and I feel like they really should work on it and make sure that everybody gets to keep their rights. Everybody gets their slap on the wrist. Everybody gets to have fair judgment when it comes to misdemeanors, crimes, whatever the case may be. It has to be fair for all races, for all type of people, and they have to be more lenient and more accepting of people who commit crimes or people who commit misdemeanors, and they want to have a better life for themselves, for their families. They should always look at the bigger picture. This is what I'm saying. If a system is supposed to judge you and make sure that everybody's in the right place, then it's supposed to look at the bigger picture. It's supposed to do the right thing, not what's happening these days.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I also feel like the system is also a part of the problem. Like you have these people, you have doctors, over like giving away, perks and all these other things. Like yeah, and it's being like looked away just because the or getting a blind eye turned to it because it's a doctor who wrote it. But like I literally just had a friend come from the doctors the other day. He got in a car accident
Yeah,
and they were prescribing him all these different pain pills and stuff. He's like, nah, like I'm straight because I don't want to end up hooked on that. But it's
yeah,
like those same people who they give those drugs to could get caught with that and end up
and
going to
and
jail.
and not just
But
not just that, Shay. By the way, that's a good point. It's not just that. Look at the record labels. Look at the
oh
music
yeah,
labels. Look at the
for
music
sure,
labels. Look at
for
what they're
sure.
teaching kids from the second they start understanding and listening to music and going to school and listening to what their classmates are
Hmm.
listening to. Look at the type of lyrics they're hearing, right? So a little trivia about me: I used to live in California, and
Hmm.
at some point in my life, I was living with a couple of hoodlums,
Hmm.
gangsters and whatnot. And the ringleader, he was a kid who grew up with a junkie mother, and his dad shot himself as a kid. And so he lived all of his life on the street. Now, when you live in your life on the street and you listen to that type of music all day, every day, like till I met him, he was listening to that type of music and like saying the lyrics back, and he was so affected by that music that I don't think I've ever seen him a single time without some kind of crazy song playing in the background about shooting people up or doing drugs or having sex with random prostitutes, crazy shit like that. And so
Yeah.
that affects his mentality to the point where he thinks that it's okay now to do all this crazy shit. It's okay to go and steal and rob and sell drugs and like have sex with prostitutes all the time. And so that's his life down the drain. He didn't have a choice in what happened in his life in terms of what happened with his family.
Hmm.
He ended up growing up on the streets, the same streets that are run by the system that ran him through the mud and let him become what he is right now, trying to fight against the system using crime and using illegal ways that eventually got him caught more than once. So I feel like every case is different, and I'm not saying that a lot of these people felt like they were cornered with this. You know what I mean? Like they had no other choice. There was no way out. The only way was to steal, sell drugs, do whatever it is that they needed to do to make it, to survive. And that's a certain minority, by the way, according to the statistics from the report that I'm about to come to in a second. That's a minority because most of the people, especially drug dealers, they make a lot more money than they need. They make
Yeah.
more money than they require to survive, to eat, to drink, to live in a respectable home. So it's not a necessity for the majority of these drug dealers or the suppliers or whatever it is. It's not a necessity for them to actually be committing the crime. A really small portion of the people, a minority of the people within this study and within many other studies you can search up online, they're people who just sort of got the short end of the stick, as they say, right? The ones that are
Yeah.
trying to make it. But then when they actually get into the drug business and they make it, they get hooked on it, right? So now I want to make more. Now I want to reach out more people. Now I want to start doing this as a business, right? And so they end up
Yeah.
making it through the drug business. And it's not just in America, because America, like now, is becoming, legal in many places and become more common than anything. But most of the world, about 70% of the world, drugs are illegal there. And so the people selling drugs are always the greedy people. Are always the people that are trying to make bank through drugs and just, living la vida loca, just going crazy with it. And so, it's those that I'm essentially trying to understand, like, how far do you think you're going to go when you've got something that big, you got an operation that big going on, and you're targeted by so many people, your competitors, the authorities, the country itself that you're in, the country that you're throwing that shit at. You're targeted by so many people. How do you think this is going to end for you? These people.
Yeah, like when would they feel like they were gonna stop, or maybe they never will?
Exactly. How do you think it ended for Pablo Escobar?
Yeah.
For Frank Lucas?
Mm-hmm. It ended up catching up to him.
Exactly. So
But you
that's
think
what I'm
that's more
saying.
of a
Like,
reputation thing?
why are they not understanding that this isn't the way? Why are they not understanding that, it's one thing to be doing the drugs, but to actually be selling the drugs, that's a lot worse. Because it's not your life that you're throwing away. It's all these people that are taking the drugs from you. And so you go down that route and you hurt that many people and you expect nothing's going to happen to you? I mean, even if you don't believe in God, but at least you have the common sense to believe in karma. This article was actually, the intent behind it was to explain to us that, crimes do pay. And people make a living off of crime. Mm-hmm. Now, these individuals have trouble securing a job or are only qualified for low-wage positions. Some people commit a variety of crimes, from pickpocketing and shoplifting to robbing a bank and selling drugs and weapons to earn income. So to help fight crime, scholars and policymakers need to better understand why people commit crimes to get money and how much they bring in.
And also maybe what they could do to, lower the crime rate.
Well, yeah, that's what they're hoping to do. That's why they made this study, right? And so this study was made in Pennsylvania State University and the University of Maryland College Park by two professors, Holly Nguyen and Thomas Logren, to try and gauge out how much money people earn through criminal activities and whether self-reports of illegal income are reliable. And see, that's another thing. So, unfortunately, the system itself, like you said, is allowing a lot of these people to get away with what they're doing by laundering their money. So they don't even have a foolproof way of dealing with all the people that, are selling their drugs or committing their crimes and then sending the money places outside the federal government's jurisdiction. Like in Switzerland, people would be sending their money to Swiss bank accounts or the new cryptocurrency, right? So they're allowing all these new forms of money laundering to take place. And so that's another thing where I feel like the system isn't really that reliable either, right? Because they're allowing all these loopholes where people could actually make their illegal money, and there's no like data trail or paper trail of where that money goes. And so it's becoming harder and harder to find any like reliable reports for this illegal income.
Especially with Bitcoin and stuff like that.
Exactly. Like, that's just a new method that I feel was primarily intended for people like that. People that are trying to launder their money. And nobody really knows, because it's not like, cryptocurrency is controlled by the government.
Yeah.
And so they don't really understand why this is happening, yet they're allowing it to happen. If they wanted, they could have stopped it. If they wanted, they could have made it illegal. And so that's another thing where you start to realize the intricacies of the corruption that's going on within the system.
Yeah, but you do have some sites where it's like they'll ban you from like say Cash App, for instance. Cash App will ban you from uploading or from getting Bitcoin if they feel like you're laundering money.
Yeah, but that's
I've had
not
a couple
necessarily where people would go.
Yeah, but that's
to
not the
launder
government.
money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mhm.
It's there's so many ways now to do it. It's not just cryptocurrency.
That's not the
There's
only
so
way.
many. There's been ways since time immemorial of doing it. And
Mhm.
so like that's the issue. That's what I feel is something that they should work on, something that they should resolve. And so the individuals that participated in this study were split into two groups. The Pathways study, and those were the people that were convicted of a felony at some point between the ages of 14 and 17, and then were tracked for 7 years. They were interviewed about illegal work and illegal income. The final sample comprised 368 individuals, most of whom were male and either black or Hispanic. The average age of the participants was 21 years old. Now, the other group was the National Supported Work Demonstration Project, which is the NSW for short. So the individuals who participated in the NSW project, which was offered to 15 sites nationwide, were unemployed and had a history of employment problems, but may not have had criminal backgrounds. So they were people who couldn't actually, get a proper job. These individuals also were asked about illegal earnings and activities. The 1,189 people in the final sample were primarily male and black and ranged in age from 16 to 49 years. So, the takeaways from this study was that people were earning an average of $1,470 a week through criminal activities. And that's from the first group, from the Pathways group. So from the group that was comprised of 368 individuals that started and were convicted of a felony from the ages of 14 to 17. And then, after that felony, they went down that path. They ended up making, at age of 21, they ended up making roughly $1,470 a week. Which is, again, this isn't necessary to survive. You could survive on a lot less than that every week.
Yeah.
So this was going overboard, for the study. And the individuals participating in the other project, the NSW project, were reporting earnings of $914 a week on average. So that's the 1,189 people were earning an average of $914 a week. Again, not necessary to survive. It's a lot of money for just paying the bills.
Also, how do we don't really necessarily know their situation either. I mean, yeah, some of them could be going overboard, but some might actually have to support a full their brothers and sisters, a full family. I know some people like that.
But so okay, say you're right, and say they have a big family to support. You want to tell me they can't figure out a way to do just that with a lot less money? Isn't $1,000 a week? That's $4,000 a month. Isn't that a bit much?
Honestly, for some people in some states, as well. Like it varies out here. It might not
This
be.
was in
You know.
Pennsylvania and Maryland.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not sure the cost of living out there, but
I
I
can
don't
tell you
know.
it's
It
a lot
feels
less
like,
than California. That's for
huh?
sure. I can tell you it's a lot
You
less
said
than California. That's for sure. Like
that's a lot for
Florida,
California. That's a
California,
lot
and
for
other
here,
places.
for
Yeah,
sure. But I don't know
yeah.
about other places. Because out here, you can get a whole spot, like a whole house, really, for
Mm,
1,200 a month.
1,200 a month. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so you could work a minimum wage job, like a basic salary job, and still be able to support a family, support a household. The fact that the average of the people that were brought in for this study make that much money, personally, like maybe you see it from another perspective, but personally I think that's more than they need. If all of these people are making an average of that much money a week, I feel like it's more than they need. I feel like maybe they started making money, they realized, how easy it is, they accepted that, they're doing something wrong, they just don't care, they'd rather make the money and just keep building stacks. And so they end up going that route and accepting that
Yeah,
route for what it is, right?
that's true. I'm probably taking it or going even further.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it didn't start just to, for them to collect themselves, to compose themselves, compose their household or whatever the case may be. No, they kept going, right? Because the study included people within a significant time frame. So the people from the Pathaway study, for example, they were just people who started committing felonies at the age of 14 and 17. And
Yeah.
then when they were finally brought in, they were 21 years old. So from the age of 14 to 21 years old, this is how much that they were making a week.
And that goes back to what you were saying as well, like with the about how the culture around music is set up. Like a lot of people want to live this certain lifestyle, and so they do these things because
Exactly.
they feel like that's the
Exactly.
cooler thing to
Exactly.
do.
And again, that goes back to what I was saying as well, where I mostly blame the system for this. I mostly blame the system that's ruining these people's minds, right? And the people behind the
Mm-hmm.
system, the people regulating the system. And funny enough, within the study, 83% of the interviews with the Pathways participants. So the Pathways participants were the ones that, starting from 14 and 17 up to 21 years of age, they reported selling drugs for money. 83% of them were selling drugs for money.
Mm-hmm.
So, this has become sort of a new fad, it seems.
Yeah.
Listening to the songs about Molly, about smoking weed, about all that, it made them. This wasn't like the state of the world. If you look 10, 20, 30 years before, 30 years ago, this wasn't the state of the world where drugs were just so casually talked about, so casually used. They were there, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't allowed to be where 14-year-old kids up to 21-year-old kids were making bank from selling those drugs.
Mm-hmm.
The media,
Actual kids too.
the media attention, the music, the videos, the movies, this promoted it in such a way where it's just now it's become normal. Now you could be in a group of people who don't even need to be struggling at all. You could be in college and you would have like two of your roommates selling drugs. One selling shrooms, the other
Mm-hmm.
one selling weed. That's just the norm now. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
12% of the interviews, they reported engaging in robbery. So only 12% were stealing.
Mm.
Respondents said that they made money through burglary in 41% of the interviews. About 26% of Pathways interviewees said they engaged in at least one of the following crimes: shoplifting, buying, receiving, selling property, using checks, credit cards illegally, stealing a car or motorcycle, stealing something worth more than $100, and entering a
Mm.
building to steal.
What do you think about us scammers?
Scammers, well, that's
Like, do you
another
feel
thing,
like
you
they
know,
have a
like,
reason to do that, or there's some people that are also doing it because they think it's cool or it's an easy way to make money? Like, there's people out there who will literally just call old people's phones and like tell them or act like their grandchild and do this or that and convince them to send them money type like stuff like that. Like picking
yeah,
on the helpless kind of thing.
yeah, and
Like, what
again,
are your views
that's
on that?
that's another thing, right? Because, for example, one of the most common scams that I've seen these days is the IRS scam, right? They call you and tell you they're the IRS and that they're mostly targeting older people or people that they don't really have any street smarts. And so when they talk in a certain way, they assume that they may really be from the federal government, right?
I had that happen to my friend.
Yeah, and so that's again another problem with the system because the only way that the IRS gets in contact with you is through the mail, correct?
Hmm.
Now, wouldn't it be better for those people? For those people that don't necessarily have access to their mail, for those people that are older or they don't have anybody looking out for them, wouldn't it be easier to have sort of an authenticated system, the same system that you deal with when you're calling your bank and accessing your bank account? It's just a valid system for the people who need it, where when they call you to check up on something or they send you certain notes, it will be directly to you, whether it's through a phone call. So they would give you the option to receive a phone call and authenticate your identity by giving you the information, not you giving them the information. They give you the information so that they know how the IRS deals with you and what the IRS handles.
Hmm.
And so as opposed to actually never hearing from the IS and thinking that you just heard from them for the first time when a scammer reaches out to you. And so, not everybody. So obviously, these scammers they have sort of like a target audience, right?
Yeah.
They have a demographic that they're dealing with, and so it's for that demographic's sake that I'm saying that you should provide them an option. The government should provide them an option where if they're late on any bills, if something needs to be handled, that they would receive a call from the IRS that confirms their identity by providing them the information, not the citizen giving them any information. Because if they ask the citizen for information, that means that they're not legit. But if they already have
Yeah.
the information that's needed, including the tax ID number and whatnot, then it makes sense that it could actually be the IRS. And they would have their own number. Like, don't tell me they can't afford this because they can't.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
where does all our tax money go?
It's literally the treasury. Like,
So, having their own secure line, having their own secure number that shows up for the people that require this service would be a really good way to start.
mm,
But that's just
yeah,
one
literally.
of many crimes. Now it's not one of the biggest crimes. Like scamming is obviously a crime, but it's not as big as selling drugs and robbing people and breaking and entering and all of that. I feel like those crimes sort of take the spotlight when it comes to harming someone else. About
Mm.
44% of Pathways participants did not complete high school. Participants reported working a traditional job an average of 11 weeks over a 1 year period.
Dang.
It seems that education plays a part in this. And it
That
feels
also goes
like,
right back to the system, though.
well, yeah, that's true. That's true. The system not paying the teachers enough, not taking care
Not
of
paying the
the
schools enough.
schools, making sure everybody is learning properly.
I don't
Like,
know if you noticed, but
even
like
people
the
who graduate
schools,
high school, so 44% of them, they never completed high school. But even the ones that complete high school in America, most of them, they haven't learned shit. Most of them
yeah,
don't know anything about how anything works, whether it's math, science, whatever the subject may be. And so they struggle to actually get further in life simply because their teachers just let them be. They couldn't care enough for their students because they're not motivated to care enough. They're not giving the proper means of living. And so most of them
yeah.
hate what they do. Most of them hate their jobs. And so I feel like,
Hmm.
despite the numbers that we're seeing here, I feel like education does play a big part in it, because if you're smart enough to get any other job, if you're smart enough to do anything else, if you have the education, if you have the means to do anything else, I feel like most of these criminals would not resort to crime, would try to polish that skill that they got in school, would try to find something else, do like study something else, write
Yeah.
something, read something, be
And there's so many
innovative.
ways to make money online too.
Exactly, be innovative, be creative about it.
Hmm. You can
And you're
literally do
right, this
anything,
does
sell
lead back to
anything.
the system needing to work on setting better educational standards. In 55% of interviews with NSW participants, they reported selling drugs to earn money. In slightly more than 8% of interviews, they reported engaging in robbery. An estimated 38% of participants said they had engaged in other income generating crimes such as pickpocketing, selling weapons, embezzling, selling stolen vehicles, and forging stolen checks.
Mm.
So again, it seems that most of these numbers indicate that a lot of the crime nowadays is dealing drugs. Drugs have
Yeah.
become such a blatant pandemic upon our community that it feels like everyone is always in need of supply for it. And
Do
so,
you
it the amount of crime has increased, but it's simply because, the amount of drugs have gone higher, right? There's so many illegal drugs that people can get now. And there are so many new drugs that are coming out. And so,
yeah.
like, the people who are always robbing are still robbing. They might have a side hustle where they're selling drugs on the side. But it seems that most of the numbers indicate that it's drugs. It's selling drugs. And that's what people are mostly being caught doing.
What do you feel about weed?
So, personally, I've traveled to many places, right? And in some places, weed was legal. Weed was okay to have and smoke, like almost as if it was cigarettes, right? And in other places, weed was it wasn't just a misdemeanor; it was a huge crime where like they could potentially kick you out of the country if you
Hmm.
were ever caught smoking weed. Other countries have different kinds of weed, like hash in the Middle East. Personally, I don't agree with weed simply because I feel like weed constrains me. But that's just my personal opinion. So a lot of people have opinions about it. There is science to back up what I'm saying, but a lot of people work differently. A lot of people feel like they get their innovation and creativity from smoking plants, right? And so
Hmm.
I think that maybe if they never really used weed in the first place, if they didn't care about it, they'd be able to focus, they'd be able to do a lot more, right? They'd be able to be a lot more
Yeah.
effective. as a workforce than if they smoke. But, like I said, that's just my opinion. The problem comes from when you smoke weed and then you have a certain responsibility on others, right? So if you're a parent, and your kids need you, whether they need you to help them study, help them do homework, whether they need you to parent them, and you're just like sitting on your ass and smoking weed all the time, like you're done off work and you just need that time to smoke weed and go to sleep, right? And just like get high and forget all your other responsibilities. That's when I think it's wrong. That's when I can say that, it's not just an opinion. I'm pretty sure that's not right. What you're doing is not right. You got other responsibilities to take over first, and then you can do whatever it is you want when you got the time to do it, when you can afford doing it, right? Or, when I got a business, when I'm trying to run a business, and I got all these potheads that are popping up and late for work and barely there, barely, like super high. Perhaps they laced their weed with something that day, or they got, a different strand of weed that they're not used to. So, they can't really cope well with a work environment. And so, again, that becomes a problem. And so, again, it really depends on the situation. But if you're using it recreationally at a time where you don't have any responsibility, whether it's work, whether it's family related, then it's up to you. You could do whatever you want. And trust me, man, I'm not one to judge. Others. I've been through so much of my life that I'm not one to judge those people for thinking that that's what they need to do on their free time.
Yeah. But at the same time, I see what you're saying when you're like, basically, you're kind of imposing on other people or on your co-workers type shit when you sit there and you like you smoke before work or something like that, or during work, stuff like that, because you like they kind of have to pick up your slack.
Yeah, exactly. Especially for a coworker, exactly, right? Because then you're not getting as much throughput as you need, right? You're not getting the output that you need, and so eventually the business starts failing or the company starts failing because it's too much, even for the coworkers that are sober. It's too much for them to be able to put in the right hours, and then so the business ends up suffering, and so you end up ruining everybody else's life simply because you just want to smoke weed all the time. And so these are the cases where I would say weed is not the right way to go. But in terms of recreational use, it's up to you. It's up to the person. I personally think that it really depends. It's not for me, but at the same time,
as long as it's not hurting nobody. You feel me?
It's like everything in moderation is okay. You understand? So you're out in Aruba or Amsterdam or wherever, the Himalayas, whatever, you're on top of the mountain and you want to try to go even higher, right? So it's like once every couple of moons, you know what I mean? But not something that I would enjoy regularly, simply because I feel like it constrains me. But if, again, recreationally and whatever it is, the situation that you're in, it calls for it, then, maybe.
Because everybody definitely gets everybody's different when it comes to it as well. They get different feelings. Some people don't
exactly.
Like it at all because they get paranoid.
Again, I feel like especially when it comes to smoking plants and all that, I feel like it really depends on the environment. Like where you go with it and how you feel about it depends on the environment. If you're smoking every day in like a shitty environment, you're not gonna have a good time. In fact, it's gonna get old. You're gonna grow the tolerance and not feel it anymore. It's not gonna hit as hard anymore. That when the time comes and you're somewhere like for example the Himalayas, right? You're on top of the mountain and you're smoking there. It's not gonna hit you as hard than if you hadn't smoked for a whole year, then you just went on top of the Himalayas with your friends and you're smoking there for the first time. It's gonna be a lot more memorable. You know, it's like a high. You know, it's gonna be a much better high. And so yeah, you know, again, yeah, I'm not saying that, you know, people should do drugs. I'm just saying that it depends on the situation. It depends on what you're trying to do. It depends on, again, if you're harming others, if you're hurting others or not. Okay.
That makes plenty of sense.
So more than 67% of the NSW participants did not have a high school diploma. So again, this goes back to saying that education does play a big part in it. For both groups, those who did more legal work tended to have lower illegal earnings. For every $1 earned legally, there was a 7% reduction in illegal earnings.
So maybe they just weren't good at what they were doing or something like that.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting about this is that so the people who actually try to do the right thing, people that try to go down the right path, they didn't quite know what they were doing when they started doing things illegally, right?
Yeah.
They maybe learned from the wrong person, or they didn't really understand how this whole system works. Maybe they actually had a conscience. You know, maybe they actually felt like I was doing the right thing, I was doing the noble thing, and then now I'm resorting to something petty, something beneath me, right?
Yeah.
I would consider those people that were doing legal work but resorted to doing illegal things for money. I'd consider those people to be, you know, the ones that are struggling. They sort of hit a massive speed bump and they can't seem to get past it. And so they're doing whatever it takes to sort of lift themselves up. And again, I feel like this is a big problem with the system where despite the economy being where it's at, people are still not making enough money to support themselves and their families. And so that's why they feel like they have to resort to that. That's good people. Good people are not making enough to support themselves and their families. So they have to resort to that. At least that's how they feel. You know, people who feel like they don't want to get another job. I mean, you know, again, this comes back to what I had mentioned earlier is that, you know, despite the fact that, okay, I can empathize, you're suffering, you're not making enough to feed the mouse that you got back home, or, you know, to keep the household intact, yet crime is not the answer. Because at the end of the day, they got caught. And now that they're caught, what are all these people that were depending on you going to do? Why do they have to suffer for you choosing the wrong path, for you doing the wrong thing? And so, you know, that's the thing that I'm trying to say is that there's always another way. You just build these barriers. You know, the criminals that go down that path, they build these barriers. Thinking that, nah, I just got to do this, right? Or somebody else is doing it and making so much money, so why can't I do it? Yeah. And so when they try to do it, they suck at it, right? Because that's what the numbers are telling us, right? Because they're not able to do it as good as you know, those criminals are doing it, that have been doing it all their lives. Yeah. Right? And so they automatically resort to that, and they look at other people that are doing the wrong thing and think that, you know, I could be doing that. I could be making that much. Instead of actually just thinking about the whole picture and realizing that this barrier is only in their heads, that they could go past the barrier, go online, see what's possible to do, what sort of jobs are out there, right? If they could have a second job, a third job, right? If they can make their kids work, if they can make their wife work.
Yeah.
Right? So there are always ways to make something happen that does not necessarily require you to go down the wrong road.
And there's side hustles you could do that aren't really illegal either. There's so much.
There side hustles, you say?
Yeah, there's like say you already have a main job and you want to sell something on the side, like you sell some clothes or sell fruit, whatever you really want to do. Just something on the side, but as long as it's legal.
Exactly. And you know, you can't tell me that it's not there, because it's there. And everybody knows it's there. Anybody that has access to Google knows it's there, right? It's just they put these barriers in their head that, you know, oh, I don't got internet, I don't got a phone, I don't got time to worry about looking for something else, even if it's just across the street, you know? Like, these people don't even try to just walk up to you know, those random people with power whom they always blame for everything, and just tell them, listen, man, give me a job, let me mow your lawn, let me do 1, 2, and 3. These people have so much money that if you go up there and show them character, show them initiative, they will not give a rat's ass to give you what you want. To them, it means nothing. To them, paying your bills is nothing. So you go there and show them character, right? You go them and try to prove yourself by trying to do the right thing. And God willingly, you find the right way. Because no matter which way you look at it, whether you believe in God or not, the fact that you're here, the fact that you, me, and everybody else is living their lives and able to do their thing and able to wake up every day is a gift from God. You lost faith in that. You lost faith in that gift. You decided to throw it away. You decided to harm it by doing illegal things, by hurting others, by harming others.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of putting faith where faith deserves to be put, in the goodness of people, in the goodness of man, in the goodness of the one that made it all happen.
Yeah.
So it seems like from this research and from a lot of other researchers out there, it seems like most of the people that are committing these crimes are people who know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
They're people who are going down that path, who are choosing to do the wrong thing, and they're good at what they do. They're good at doing the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing it not just, and this is again a personal thing from the numbers that I'm seeing. They're doing it not just for the sake of surviving, but they're doing it out of greed, out of need for more. Or maybe they're just trying to escape never needing anything. So maybe they just keep doing it, thinking that the more I do it, the more I'll never require to actually beg for money or do any decent job or do anything good in my life to earn money. It's like this, Shay. I feel like if a lot of people change their speculation about how life works, if a lot of people accept the fact that it's a very short life that we live in on this earth, and that every step you take is a ripple upon this world, it changes how this world plays out for you. Because this is your life, this is your world, this is you who is running the show. And if they decide to take the right step towards something good, even if the world is not good back, but at least you took the right step, at least you tried.
Mm-hmm.
then you cannot fail. You just can't. Not in this world and not after you leave this world. You cannot fail. Even though the world might seem like it's unfair, even though it might seem like you're not getting what you're worth in this world, but you still cannot go wrong.
Yeah.
You decide to go the other way. You decide, you know what? The world's treating me like this, so I'm going to go hard. I'm going to f everything up. I don't care. You decide to go down that path, you're going to fail. There's no two ways about it. There's no criminal in this world that's known for his crimes that hasn't been apprehended and brought to justice, that hasn't lost his life in despair, that hasn't lost trust in everybody around him. Like, even if they, grow up with it, even if they live 30, 40, 50, 60 years with that shit and they grow up, they still have the issue where they can't trust nobody. And they've lost so much more than they've gained.
There's also people who use that as motivation, so it's still, like, you're right, it's not really an excuse.
Exactly. And, it's not even about having an excuse or not, Shay. It's about the fact that one way leads to salvation. One way leads to good fortune. One way leads you to going up. The other way only leads down. Even if it seems that you're getting high in the moment, where you're getting so much out of it, you're still leading yourself down. It's a downward spiral. It might not hit you right away, but it's going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's up to you at the end of the day what you want to do with your life. It's up to you if you want to turn over a new leaf and take the right step to doing the right thing and see if the world doesn't play out the way you wanted to play out. But you gotta be patient. You gotta persevere through it. You gotta fight through it. Or you could wait until you fail. It's up to
That's
you
true.
how you want to lead your life.
Up.
And with that, I think we can end our episode. You got anything else more to say, Shay?
No, not really. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. Remember, kids, crime is never the answer.
No, sir.
It's Nico Bellic. I'm here for an interview.